to episode 101 of the Blood Brothers podcast. We're sadly without a Rob tonight, but we do have a Sean.
Hooray!
Hooray, hello. And we're joined in our second era, or is that the right word? Maybe. Yeah. Sounds like we've had just some sort of massive seismic change, but we haven't. We have not got rid of Rob permanently. We are joined by Katy Watson, who is the author of the forthcoming The Three Dahlias. Hello, Katy.
Hi there.
How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you, if a little hot.
Yes, we are recording on probably one of the hottest days of the year so far.
Spectacular.
Yeah, my fan is on in the background, so if that's interfering, I apologize, but it's like background noise of what's happening in real life in it, so deal with it. And
we made the mistake, well, not the mistake, because we've been wanting to do it, but yesterday we decided that it was the right day to dig up the driveway.
Oh no, not the right day.
It turned out it was, I'm a little pinker than I necessarily thought I was going to be when Sunday started. But we did get it done, so we are momentously proud, very achy, but a little ready for the warm.
Yeah, you're just on your way back from sickness as well, aren't you? So that's...
Yeah, no, I thought we were feeling quite strong. We thought, well, we'll see how easy it is to start the process. And then a few hours later, we're like, we are finished.
Fantastic.
Yeah, well done.
So, yeah, well done us.
Yeah, and well done, Katy, for writing such an amazing book.
That's a nice link there.
It was,
I like that.
wasn't it? I got good at them after 100.
I think the segue is our friend.
It's not a time of speaking. So obviously not many people, apart from maybe NetGalley or people that have got proofs will have read it. Please, could you tell the public what your wonderful book is about?
Okay, well, the Three Dahlias of the title are actually three actresses, and they're all from different generations, and they've all played or are about to play the fictional Golden Age detective Dahlia Lively. So you've got Rosalind King, who played her in the original movies in the 80s, and then went on to become a genuine national treasure. And there's Cara Hooper, who starred in the long-running TV version until it was cancelled about 5 years ago, and who basically believes she is Dahlia. And lastly, we've got Posey Starling, who is an ex-child star, fresh out of the Fame Wilderness and rehab, to take on the role for the new movie reboot. And they're brought together at a fan convention at Aldermere, the family home of the late Lettice Davenport, who's the author who created Dahlia in the first place. They're not immediately very taken with each other, to be honest. They've all got their own opinions on what the character should be, and they don't necessarily agree. But when it transpires they're all being blackmailed, and then the first body pitches up, they kind of have to work together to find out what's going on at Aldermere and to catch a murderer, mostly by asking themselves, what would Dahlia do?
So
it's like, what would Jessica do in the Jessica Fletcher version?
It's exactly like that.
It feels incredibly a golden age, and that's meant as a real compliment, because I think it's hard to get it right rather than doing a bit of a pastiche. So that obviously comes from a deep passion for the genre rather than going, this is popular.
Oh no, I grew up in a family of murder mystery lovers, so it's very much part of me always. I very recently got to go to a Solve Along a Murder, She Wrote in London with my mother, my brother, and my eldest cousin, which was a fantastic bonding experience. But where you get to watch an episode of Murder, She Wrote and solve it along with the host, and the whole audience is there, and you rate all the guest stars based on how famous they were in the 80s, and it all works together. It was great. But that's the sort of thing my family do. My grandparents famously in Oxford for my eldest cousin's graduation managed to stalk Colin Dexter until they could get his autograph, and I believe they actually ended up doing this twice. And my mum was reminding me the other day, I'm actually writing a piece at the moment about growing up in a family of murder mystery addicts, and so my family have been texting me and WhatsApping me all these fantastic stories to include. And my mum was reminding me, because I said, I remember I had a Cluedo party when I was about 10, and we had all the giant cards made up with all the faces, we, did it all ourselves, and we had this fantastic Cluedo party. She said, yes, and there was the murder cake. The murder cake, Mum, I don't remember the murder cake. She said, yeah, you remember how everyone used to have those cakes where you had the doll in the middle and then she had the princess skirt and the skirt was the cake and you just stuck a Barbie in it? I was like, yeah.
Yep.
Said, I did you one of those, but it was a murdered doll. It was blood all over it.
Oh my God.
So, obviously this has been blocked from my memory for all time, and sadly there is no photographic evidence, but she swears she did it. So,
Oh, this is terrible that there's no photo. She's going to have to do it again.
that's what I said. I think for the launch I need a new cake.
Yes.
So now I want to know if, when you're all sort of gathered round big family dues, Christmas, this kind of thing, is there like a long standing rivalry of best detective?
No, we're all
Do you all
fairly
tend to agree?
amicable. Yeah, I think our love is wide ranging. So we enjoy sharing recommendations and books, and I'm in lots of trouble with my Uncle Doug because I still owe him some books that I borrowed last month and I haven't got them back in time for his cruise. And my Uncle Al has been asking me to write a murder mystery forever, so I had to mention him in the acknowledgements because it's coming out around his birthday. So everybody's very sort of amicable about it. And it's nice because it's quite a bonding thing, because my husband, Dr. Watson, he really is. He really is Dr. Watson.
Did you pick him for that reason?
He wasn't a doctor when I married him. But he, the way he found his way into my family wasn't through being a great boyfriend or, being obviously loving and supporting of me. It's because when he came on his first big family holiday with various aunts, uncles, cousins, as well as my immediate family, and we did the big holiday murder mystery that obviously you do on these things, he not only took part perfectly happily, but he got landed with a part where it turned out he had a hidden identity, and so he had to change his accent with each round of the game, and he did it perfectly, and they were all like, yeah, this one, keep this one, he's great, we want him for the next murder mystery.
You can see them all already penning more difficult roles for him in every successive year.
Basically, yes. So
yeah. This is incredible. This might be the best start to one of these podcasts we've done.
It's the murder cake that sold it, isn't it?
It's
murder cake and writing parts for a new boyfriend, as if to test
also,
him.
like I hadn't thought about those cakes with the doll in the middle since the 70s and 80s, really. And now I'm just haunted by memory.
I mean, they were terrifying in their own right, but when you add the blood...
I think the reason I found them terrifying was that we also had a similar thing that covered the toilet roll.
Yes.
There was a doll and its skirt covered the loo roll, because God forbid anybody see a loo roll.
No.
And then you're like, oh yay, are we eating the loo roll for the cake now? What's happening? It was just, honestly, the things we had to go through. It's no wonder we all turned to crime.
I mean, it's fair enough, really. A shocking time.
Time.
It was always kind of written in the stars that you would write possibly a crime, but why did you decide you wanted to write your own?
Well, The Three Dahlias is my debut crime novel, but it's my 45th published novel.
45th?
It took me a while to get here.
Wow.
I'm right in thinking that you've done children and adults amongst that 45.
Yeah. I've been writing professionally for about a decade. And I've written for children, young adults, women's fiction, romance, general fiction, basically anything anyone would hire me to write. And I love the genres I've written in. I love YA fiction, I love kids fiction, I love romance, I love women's fiction. I've really enjoyed all of those. And the genres I read widely in as well. I never felt quite up to a crime novel. I always, I love crime novels. I've read them my whole life. I've always wanted to write one, but they always just seemed like an extra level above where I was. I didn't think it was something I could do. And then once you start writing in one genre and the contracts keep coming, you don't want to risk losing the work. You don't want to think, oh, I'm going to go try something new, because something new isn't going to pay your mortgage and the things you're writing is. So it took me quite a while to feel ready, I guess, and to have the right idea, because if I was going to do it, I wanted to do it really properly. I mean, I have a lot of people who will be sitting around the table next Christmas wanting to know about it, and it had to be something that they would feel was worth writing as well. My dad's already telling me Uncle Al's going to hate it anyway, but I'm hoping he won't get so drunk that he tells me about
it. Can he? It's got his name in it.
I know, he's very pleased about that part.
As long as you didn't actually name him as the victim, I think we're all just a thanks and acknowledgement is all.
Yes, it took me a long time. And then it sort of just came about, as so many things did in lockdown. I just finished my last YA book on the contract, and I just finished my last women's fiction book on the contract, and I just finished my last romance, or I was contracted for a few more, but I was, just hitting a deadline on that. And I'd hit every deadline through all the homeschooling and all the lockdown. I'd done all of the stuff, and we hit the summer, and I went, okay, well, I'm done for a little bit. I don't have a new YA idea. I don't have a new women's fiction idea. I just didn't have very much of anything at that point. And my agent, Gemma, she's predominantly a children's agent. And she's been with me, again, the last 10 years. And she is a huge, as it happens, murder mystery fan. And she bonded with my family at the launch party for my first YA novel. They're all sitting around a table. I'm talking about cakes and teen love and the things for Love, Lies and Lemon Pies. And she's over there talking Murder, She Wrote and Midsummer Murders with my mum. And so she'd always said, how about a crime novel? How about a crime novel? I was like, yeah, one day. We'll do that one day. And so that summer she said to me, do you think, is it time? Is it time to do the crime novel? And I thought, well, maybe. I'd like some time to think about something new, to just move somewhere in a different sphere, to try something different. And so we were painting the garden shed, and I said to my husband, how much do you know about poisons? And he's an analytical chemist, so it wasn't a stupid question, he does.
Asking for a friend.
And he just looked at me and went, you're going to write a crime novel, aren't you? I was like, I do. So,
if you know enough about poisons.
So anyway, he was willing to find out more about poisons at least, and he did know quite a lot, as it turned out. And so that was, once I'd said I was going to do it, I had to do it. And Gemma and we texted ideas back and forth. We started with the basic idea of 3 actresses famous for playing the same detective. That's all we had, and there would be some reason they would have to solve a murder. So I went away and I thought about it for a while, and I went back and said, this is what I'm thinking to start with. But actually, mostly what we talked about was the fictional detective and the author who created her, because underneath the actual story of the book, there's this whole mythology of this author who doesn't exist, and this canon of 78 books that doesn't exist, plus short stories. And all of that needed to be created. So Gemma and I spent months just texting back about Dahlia Lively and who she'd be and how, and Gemma's like, she'd call everyone kiddo. I'm like, yeah, she probably would call everyone kiddo, let's put that in. And texting titles for her books like A Rather Lively Murder and Look Lively, Dahlia, and other book titles we could use in the sort of chapter headings and stuff. And then we had so much fun, and I just loved doing it so much that I really had to write the book then, and then I had to come up with an actual plot, which was harder, turned out.
And that amount of fun and back and forth surely means that there must be a series in the offing.
There is. I was very, very fortunate that Constable picked up 3 books for the first contract. So I've just finished writing book 2, and I'm waiting for some edits on that. And Gemma's already messaging and going, what about book 3? I want to read book 3 now, please. So,
and are you allowed to tell us anything about book 2? Is it all secretly under wraps?
I know, not really. I think it probably just doesn't make a great deal of sense until you've read book 1. But obviously book 1 takes place just before they're about to film the new Dahlia Lively movies. Book 2 takes place on set, or on location, as it happens, in North Wales in February, which is a setting I'm very familiar with personally. So
no, lovely. It's a good place to be in February if you're going to start killing people.
Yeah.
Gemma's first edits, because she always reads my first drafts and she always sends me back some notes, and one of them was, there is a lot of rain in this book. I'm like, well yes, because it's North Wales in February.
Yeah. No, I think one of mine was set, A Hollow Sky was set on Anglesey in February, and I mean, it needs to be grey. Yeah. The sky is hollow. It needs to be grey. And it does rain. I mean, That's why it's green.
Exactly. The
And
beautiful but wet country.
Is it set in Wrexham, or is it a fictional?
No, it's a fictional village somewhere between Wrexham and Conway.
Beautiful. And I mean, for a debut crime novel, you must be absolutely over the moon with how everything looks. I mean, the cover is incredible, but also the list of guests and the plans of the. I mean, it's just an incredible way to start.
It's gorgeous. I'm so pleased with it. I think I probably made more changes to those floor plans and the map than anything else, though, in the final proof. So I'm not sure they've forgiven me for that. But I'd done them really right at the beginning. I drafted up my own floor plans and maps so that I could keep vaguely straight in my head where things were. And I sent them over for the copy editor just to sort of cross-reference, so I could say, this is what they're supposed to be. If something doesn't match, that's what it should be. And then they came back and went, oh, we've done this. And I was like, oh, that's beautiful. However, I meant to change just that wall there and that door there, and that we need another window and things like that. But they're beautiful. And the cover just blew me away when I saw it. It's everything I wanted for it. And the hardbacks are just incredibly pretty, and they did this fantastic run of hardback proof copies in red. So the main cover is red, and they're just the most beautiful things. And yeah, I've never had proof copies that look like that before.
Honestly, it's a work of art, isn't it?
Yeah. And how was it going from a different genre to this? Was it easier or harder, or were there more challenges, or what were the differences?
I think it was, I mean, it's always hard doing something new. I think the things I've been writing for so long, I know how to do them. I know I can do them. And so even though they're still work and there's still ones that go wrong and they still take a lot, I know in myself that I'm going to get to the end of it, it's going to be okay. There was no guarantee with this one. I might never have finished it, you know. And then when I came to do my first round of revisions before anybody else had seen it, and I'm looking through going, it doesn't match what's in my head, not even because it never does it? Yeah. And I know it never does. And yet I was hoping this would be the one. There's so many more moving parts, so many pieces. You know, I've got the three protagonists, and it's the first book certainly is split up into three sections, one from each point of view. So each section had to have its own character arc, and we had to see what was changing in each of those, as well as then getting the mystery underneath it, and then the entire fictional back catalogue of an author who doesn't exist, and the timelines. And there was a lot. And I don't think I realised when I started it quite how much I'd managed to put in until it came to the edits. But it was so satisfying to do as well, to make all those pieces fit together, to travel with these women through their stories and to see them change from the people they were on page one to the people they were at the end. And I just got so much out of it. I found it incredibly fun and incredibly fulfilling, as well as incredibly frustrating, obviously, at times.
And during the editing process, was there anything spectacularly wrong or that you had to fix?
I don't think, well, I mean, probably early on, yeah. I think I did a couple of rounds. I did a round of revisions by myself, and then I did 2 rounds with my agent, and then I did another round with the editor at Constable, and then just a very quick tidy up. And there wasn't anything really, really major. But then going through the proofs and, you know, checking everything with a fine tooth comb, and that's the point where I was like, oh no, hang on, wait a moment. And I did wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and go, no, that has to be after, not before. And I had to go and just change that one word that someone had seen them after that, not before that. And then it was fine. But I didn't sleep for about 3 weeks after that, worrying that I'd missed something else. And I still now, luckily enough, people have read it now and not gone, actually, this doesn't make any physical sense at all. But I'm thinking that if there is, I mean, there's probably something, but it's not anything major.
Yeah. Sean likes to remind me from time to time of he very kindly took me to the pub to break the news of something catastrophically wrong in one of mine, where he's like, well, there's something that's good, but there's something that has to change, and rocks can't float in water.
Yeah, finding the body in a canal because some of the rocks floated away. That was I think I wrote in the notes, we need to talk about your understanding of Archimedes' principle because this isn't it.
Oh wow! But I mean, at least that was early on enough that you could change it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that was not going into print.
No.
That's
Oh,
but that we'll always have the floating rocks, won't we?
that's a
Won't
good
we?
one.
I was going to ask you if do you think because murder mysteries in the blood and in the family blood that you found it more difficult to let go of those words and go, right, this is ready?
Yeah, I think probably so. I think my parents read it quite early. I think when it was out on submission, or maybe just after it sold, they read it before the final edits. And my cousin did as well. My cousin Emma is a scriptwriter, screenwriter for BBC and various stages and stuff. So she's not only a murder mystery fan, but also a writer. So she's fantastic for sending things to and go, just tell me it doesn't suck. That's all I need to know.
Not bad. Good.
And so I'd had feedback from them, and I figured if they liked it I mean, my dad, weirdly, not a major murder mystery reader, my dad. Will watch it on telly, big fan of the show. Not his favourite genre to read. But he read it and didn't hate it. So we're calling it a win.
What more do you need?
Is there like a series or a detective that you is above everyone else?
It's hard, isn't it? They're all so good. And yeah, I think for me, it is always Poirot because it just is. It just is. I mean, my husband and I had a Poirot-themed wedding. I didn't mention this bit earlier, did I?
No, that's so cool.
It wasn't really. It was an Art Deco wedding. And the main reason was the only thing that both sides of the family could agree on about anything was that we all liked Poirot. So we had an Art Deco themed wedding and everybody was happy.
Class.
Did anybody grow a moustache particularly for the day?
I really wanted my dad to. I really did, because there are certain similarities. We could have got away with it with him in his dinner jacket and his bow tie and his bald head, and yeah, we could. It would have been great, but he wouldn't do it.
And is there a go-to Poirot book that is your favorite?
No, I don't think there is.
Oh, that's good.
No, I think it's just a general love that, from the novels to the short stories, and there's the sort of thing that you go back and read just higgledy-piggledy when you feel like it. Like you'll see some on telly, you'll pick them up, you'll read the book, and it all just lives in my consciousness, and I think they've all just become one. To be honest, it's just one all big thing. So I think probably Poirot. I love the Marples as well, and I love Lord Peter Wimsey and all of those. But the other series I really, really enjoyed, which is a little bit different, was the MMK Death In murder mysteries. And MMK is more famous for her historical romances, things like The Far Pavilions and The Shadow and the Moon, things like that. But she wrote a series called Death in Zanzibar and Kenya and Berlin, different places, sort of in the 1940s and 50s, I think, mostly, some a bit later. And they're all sort of one-shot, slightly romantic murder mysteries, and it all set around the time where the empire's just falling apart and everybody's moving out. And I find those, I've always just really loved those.
No, that's great. I've only ever read I'd say 3 Agatha Christie's, but what I've read I've really liked.
You've got catching up to do.
Yeah,
I probably watched most of them more recently than I've read them. They're the sort of thing I read constantly on long summer holidays, either in the rain in the caravan in Porthmadog or in the sun in France with the family on holidays, and I would just sit and read Agatha Christie's. I don't think I've gone. There's a lot of them I haven't gone back to for a long time, and I probably should.
Yeah.
Now, where do you stand on YA murder mystery? Because I don't feel like we haven't had that many great ones recently.
I think the Agathas is the most recent one that's just come out, hasn't it? Which I enjoyed. I'm a fan. I'm a fan of anything that gets teens reading, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I think it's sort of one of those things that it feels like it's time again.
Yeah. I mean, my daughter, she's 13 now, and she loved all the Murder Most Unladylike books when she was a little bit younger, by Robin Stevens, who writes a fantastic golden age period murder mystery. But now she's getting that little bit older. I mean, she still goes back and read those, but it's nice to be able to give her things that are a bit more the next step, but not quite straight up to the Agatha Christie's. I mean, the advantage of the Agatha Christie's is they're actually incredibly readable, but a lot of the sort of older fiction, even things that I read when I was her age, she struggles with, just because they're written so differently to teen books today. It's just a very different style. So it's great seeing new ones coming through that I can hand off to her after I've read them.
Yeah, I think it's a real art, isn't it? That sort of taking that classic style again and making it into something that you probably would have felt the same with writing yours in the modern day as you have, that there's this sort of strange temptation to not receive phone calls and not have and you just say, what kind of MacGuffin do we have to come up with here to mean that they have no contact with the all of these things that that allow you to play the classic games. But
and that was fun. Writing book 2, obviously book 1, because it's set at an immersive fan convention, we very conveniently don't have phones for most of it, and we don't have that outside world contact, which is really very handy. In book 2, I couldn't really get away with that twice, and there was some thoughts about Welsh phone reception, but overall I felt it was probably better that we just acknowledge that people can talk to other people now. So remembering, they can just phone and find out, or they can just go and Google that was sort of a new thing I had to sort of factor in. But
it's sort of one of the things I always think with a good murder mystery, it really ruins things. The fact that information is so readily accessible, you have to be even cleverer with the way you can look up any symptom that would otherwise be mistaken for something else. What is this now? What weird poisoning is this? Well, it could be.
I think I in book 2 I have a lot of things that are hidden from even Google, or that there's secrets that just aren't. You've got to go to somebody who was there at the time to find that out. It wouldn't be there, and things like that.
Yeah, that's what we've got to rely on.
Yeah.
Secrets and lies.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Can I ask, how was it? Because writing or giving 3 characters the main part, you did it so well, and how, I know you've already spoken about how you sort of went back and forth with your agent about how the sort of language that the characters might use and things, but how was it sort of differentiating or finding the voices of the 3?
I think that came through different drafts. I think partly it was there from the start, and actually writing that first book in big chunks from each character helped, because you're very much in their head for a long period of time writing it. And they are so different, which helped as well. They're very different women. And that was, if I'd been writing 3 women of the same age with the same life experiences, it would have been much, much harder. As it was, they were so clearly different in my head, and I knew them so well by the time I sat down to write them. Their voices came more naturally to me. But it's still something that I try to refine with each edit, because you can always do more with that.
Yeah. And would you consider writing a short story as the fictional author?
Oh, I'd love to. Yeah.
That would be a cool thing to do. You could do that in the back of the paperback release, couldn't you?
I'm keeping notes. I'm keeping notes. There's one that's referenced in the first book, I think, which I think is Sapphires for Supper, which periodically, when I'm stuck in a queue somewhere, I try to figure out in my head how that would work.
That's so cool. It's funny that fictional stuff that you've created is so in your head, isn't it? You've created this little world that you can just live in.
It's great. I had a review on NetGalley the other day where the reviewer said, I just forgot that Dahlia Lively isn't a real thing, that you can't go read her books. I'm so glad that's not just me.
Really good. That's a great compliment though, isn't it?
Yeah.
It would be much easier if they did exist then, because I could go and reference what happened in them rather than trying to figure it out and then realizing I never decided.
At this point, would you like to do Twitter questions?
Yeah, sure.
So one person asked, do I need a calculator?
That was me.
That was you, yeah. And thankfully, no, you don't, or not yet, anyway.
Well, there is one on the desk over there, though, on my husband's desk, so I'd have been all right.
Yeah, all bases covered. Stephen Katy wants to know, what does a writing day look like? Do you have a structure or just get words down and see what happens?
I'm a very structured writer. I do a lot of plotting beforehand. I do a lot of planning, because I find it really difficult if I don't know where I'm going. I can get lost for days. I tend to, and this is partly from the way I've always written. When I started writing, I had 3 hours a day while my daughter was in nursery, and I had deadlines, and I just had to make the most of that, and that included walking her there and walking back. So I didn't have a lot of time to waste. So I had to get very, very structured with, knowing by the time I sat down what I was writing that day, where I needed to get to, how many words I needed, what it was going to look like. And then I also, because I only ever do things if there's a deadline, I tend to have quite a lot of deadlines because otherwise nothing ever gets done. So because I'm still writing romances, I'm still writing other things now to pay the bills. I still write 4 books a year, so I have to make the most of my time. And these books take a lot longer than anything else I write because they're so much more intricate and fun. I like living in them, so it takes me longer. So I have a very structured spreadsheet that tells me where I need to be with each book at each time, which weeks I'm working on what, how many words I need to get each day, when the edits are due, what's happening. So when I sit down every morning, I've got a spreadsheet telling me what writing words I'm doing, and then I've got my to-do list telling me what else needs to happen that day, if I need to write an article for somebody, if I've got the Q&A to answer, if I've got something else, or if I haven't done my accounts, that kind of thing.
Oh,
See, I like a bit of structure like that. It makes me happy.
Yeah.
The only way I get anything done. I still only work 9 till 3, so
I think it's sort of, that also depends on how your writing brain works. And I can't remember which famous artist it was, but they talked about how you have to sketch every day to keep your hand and your eye in. And I find definitely with writing that if I fall out the structure of it, I find it much harder to get back in.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm much slower moving, and obviously you need to take your breaks and you need to do whatever, but like I work at my most efficient when I know I've got 3 hours uninterrupted in which I am going to do this, and then you're like, right, good, out they come. Whereas if I think, I've got all day.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think when my daughter was a baby, I was at the point where she would only nap for 30 minutes ever. That's all you ever got. You got 30 minutes to take an hour and a half to get to go to sleep, and then you had 30 minutes. And I would run down those stairs to my desk. I would write for 30 minutes, and then I would be done because she'd be up again. And
that's
I got
500 words right there.
Yeah, exactly. And that was it. If I could get those 500 words, then I'd be all right. If she napped again in the afternoon, I'd get another 500. I'm having a great day. And that's just how I got used to doing it. It's so long now that I still, even though I don't have nap alarms and things anymore, I still, if I want to get words down on any given day, I set a timer. I say I've got half an hour and I write.
I find that most useful. I write in sprints. We've talked about it. We haven't spoken about it for years, Chris, but we talked about it in the early days of just, write for 25 minutes, get up from your desk for 5 minutes, wander around, sit back down, and have like, it's like interval training, but for writing. And I knew I would get, within 3 hours, I'd get 3,000 words out because you're doing it on sprints. But if I wasn't doing it like that, and if I just sat and tried to work through it, I would get about half done. Yeah,
I'm exactly the same. And
some people don't work like that. And
no, absolutely. But I definitely found it useful again during lockdown when I was homeschooling, because my husband and I were trading off. We were both still working full time, but also trying to do the homeschool. And we had a very, very complex timetable of who got to use the study when, and who was doing maths with the 5-year-old, and who was where. And it was very much, this is my time, I've got half an hour, I'm going to sit down. And so having that practice and knowing that worked for me was what made it possible to stick to my deadlines.
And do you have anything that triggers you into it? Like I tend to use a soundtrack for the book that I'm writing on, so sort of start off and create a playlist of about 8 hours worth of songs that put me in the mood of that book, which means my Spotify algorithms are obviously ridiculous, but but it means even if I go away from the book for 3 months, and then come back and come to do edit or a rewrite or whatever, and just play that, even on the first song.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, I'm there.
You're back there. Yeah, I've definitely done it. I don't think I did for this one. For lots of books, I have used soundtracks. I also, I for each book it's slightly different, or I'll sit down and it's like, okay, I'm gonna light this candle, this scented candle, and it's a scent memory, or it'll be music, or it will be I'm writing a certain pace, or different things for different books. But finding something that tricks my brain into knowing it's time to work is really important.
Yeah, I find it's great, and just to put you in the world of that story. I think maybe because I'm reading and working on some on the publishing side, working on so many other people's stories. And then when you try and sort of carve your space, you need to just have something that goes brain cleanse, right? Here we go.
Especially if I'm working on more than one book at a time, or if I'm doing edits on something but planning on something else, or if something's come through, it's interrupted the schedule, which happens all the time, then having something that gets me right back into the exact book I'm supposed to be working on and not a different one is really good.
And suddenly find you've got 2 chapters of something a lot cozier than the gritty noir that you were writing a minute ago.
The worst was when I was working on a lot of my YA novels are first person. So if I'm writing first person on one book and third on another and flipping back and forth, sometimes I go back and go, oh no, hang on. That was going to need redoing.
That's really, that is a real challenge, isn't it? It's, I think also we get quite a lot when writers change their mind halfway through and go, right, I was writing at first person, but this isn't working anymore, so I'm going to go back and change the whole thing. And you're like, geez, you can really feel it. Pacing and everything is. Yeah,
it's just a very different. It's just completely different. It's I would have to start again. I'd have to start from scratch because it would be a different book.
That's the best recommendation, really. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Just the tricks and techniques that we use to make the most of that time. I think the other thing is also just knowing that first draft is about getting it down on the page rather than
absolutely
getting a perfect word. Sort of sitting there is I often just have X's in space of that word that I know I can remember, but I'm not remembering it right now, and I'm not going to spend ages looking it up. So for ages I turned my internet off while I was writing as well, just so that no other pings and I wouldn't get distracted thinking, oh, I'll look up which park I'm talking about, And
I'm very good.
You're still looking at bloody parks you're never going to use.
I'm very keen on just getting the story down and getting to the end and figuring out the details later if there's things we're missing. But I did really screw myself over on book 2 when I came to do the edits. Towards the end of the book, I had someone saying, yes, and as she was leaving, she said to him, what was it? And it's just literally a line of X's because I hadn't decided what it was. And I went back and I was revising a sign in which she was supposed to have said that. I was like, well, I don't know, because I never figured out what that was, did I? It was obviously a pivotal line that was going to change everything in the investigation. No idea.
The biggest clue, the herring and the same line.
I just looked and go, why did I do this? Why did I do this to myself?
I mean, you do sometimes go, do I really need that line? Maybe I'll just change the whole scene. It's not pivotal anymore. But a lot of says something funny here.
Yeah.
Sharp witty reply as she's leaving the room.
Yeah.
I'll come back to that when I'm cleverer. But I love that kind of thing.
Someone else has asked, Julie at Bookish Jobbins has said cozy crime has enjoyed a huge resurgence in the UK in the past few years. Richard Osman's books aside, why do you think readers now want to read more UK-based cozy mysteries?
Now, I have to admit, I saw this question on Twitter earlier, and I saw it while I was on my big family weekly group call with my parents and my brothers. So I threw the question open to them to see what they thought as well. So my mum reckons it's because people have been locked down for 2 years and really want to murder people, which I think is valid. My brothers, however, thought it was more of the resurgence of interest in board games and escape rooms and puzzles and more mindful activities where you have to wait for the answers. That it's not just at your fingertips. As soon as you Google it, you've got to get all the way through the book to find out the solution. And you have to use your brain as you're going through to try and figure it out. And I think there's probably a strong argument for either one of those. I think I think one of the Dahlias says in the book that the Lettice Davenport stories are more of a puzzle than a loss. You know, you don't dwell on death in a cozy mystery, even though that's the whole reason for the book. It's not what you're looking at most. You're not dwelling on it at all. They dwell on the solution. You're working more on the puzzle and finding the answers. The golden age of detective fiction was famously around the time, you know, between the wars, and around the time of a fairly major collective social trauma, and it was a way of making sense of the world again. It puts death back into its box. It puts it back between the pages where it's safe. You bring in somebody who can solve anything, who can make it all right. They can put the world to rights again. You know, when you open a murder mystery that you're safe. You know that even if there's going to be death and misery on the pages, you know that by the end, in a cozy mystery at least, everything's going to be right. The world's going to be put back the way it's supposed to be. The detective's going to solve the mystery. Whoever is responsible is going to be punished or serve justice in some way, and order is returned. It's a really safe way to explore the thrill of a murder and investigation, and it gives you a puzzle to work on. And I think at this particular point in history, that's something a lot of people need right now.
Yeah, no, I think it's absolutely right. That that sort of idea that we're both, you know, socially and economically and physically, health-wise, we've gone through a good 2-3 year period of absolute chaos.
Yeah.
Being able to escape into something that is not further gore and further and disturbs your mind more, it kind of goes, we acknowledge that death has happened and now we're going to fix it. And so you're just putting a solution to that chaos is it's so refreshing. And I think it is. We don't necessarily want more gore and drama. So I think a lot of those sort of edge of your seat thrillers have lost their. I mean, certainly I can see it on the publishing side from what's selling and what's not. Is that I think people are tense enough as it is with everything that happens in daily life, and every new news bulletin and every new revelation is just like, oh, what the fuck now?
Yeah.
And actually just having something that you go, I'm not gonna, this is not gonna trigger me.
Yeah. And there's a lightness to them as well, to a Katy mystery. There's an edge of whimsy and fun and humor, and without being a funny novel necessarily, although obviously many of them are, but it's just a lightness that you can read and feel lighter in yourself. I think everything this book gave me when I was working on it during lockdown, I hope that's what it gives its readers as well. It's that escape and that lightness and just the freedom to feel that there's a world where everything will be okay.
Yeah, it's like your Stonebridge series, Chris, that you know, the detectives that we're working with, sort of, there's a sharp wit or you know, a nice knowing in joke between the two of them, but this relationship that grows and is essentially very wholesome and very pleasant, and yet at the same time they're dealing with, you know, some horrible incidents that they then sort of fix and solve themselves, but you know that they're not going to suddenly turn into characters that you go, all right, this is an you know, an anti-hero all of a sudden. You know where you're at.
I think that's also, it's one of the reasons I wanted to set the Three Dahlias in the modern day. I mean, partly it's because I'm really lazy about research, but also it's because I think that it's one thing to go back in time to the Golden Age and write mystery set there and send everybody back, and you can hark back to this perfect time, but the Golden Age, it's not a perfect time. The 1930s and 40s were not a great time to be living in necessarily. Yes, you can write a lovely cozy mystery there, but actually socially and all sorts of things, I'd much rather be now. And I wanted to bring that feeling of that time and those mysteries and what we enjoy from them right up to date and say we can have it now too, and also better medical care.
Yeah, well, bloody well done.
Very eloquent answers, and I'm going to drag the tone right down now by playing our game, if you're up for it. Now, usually we look at an author's 1-star review and then look at what else that reviewee has posted. But because your book isn't live yet on Amazon, we couldn't. So I picked.
Hooray!
I picked a different book, and I've looked at what else that person has reviewed. So I'm going to give you, both of you, an item, and all you have to do is tell me whether it's 1 star or 5 star.
So what book did they give a 1 star to?
I can't remember, if I'm honest.
Is it one of
Victoria
Katy?
Selman's. Find another victim for her. I actually can't remember. I can't remember what I clicked on.
Okay, let's call it Victoria Selman so she can build a list of people together.
Right. The first item is Dog Paw Balm.
Oh, 5 star, definitely.
5 star?
Because it's got dogs in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you agreeing?
Oh yeah, 5 star dogs. Yeah, go for it.
5 star dogs, radio. 5 star, yeah.
There you go.
Soothes paw pads. I used this paw moisturizer immediately as my dog had sore toes. He loves the paw massage. I enjoyed rubbing his toe beans.
Okay, that's. I mean, I do use that. I've got mushes that I use for the dogs in the winter when it's icy, and they put lots of salt on the roads, and then you put that on. That's what they use for huskies in the snow.
Ah, do
And
you
it's
use
like
the
a
word
wet.
toe beans?
I've never used the word toe beans, so but I might start.
Yeah.
They make me think of other things. I don't know. I don't think I'll ever refer to a dog's paws as toe beans.
No,
No.
me, no. No.
Makes me feel strangely uncomfortable for reasons I don't want to explore.
Yeah, I don't know. Unpleasant. It's funny how that.
It's a perfectly lovely review up until that point as well.
Yeah, I think maybe it's because it's sort of, you think, oh, maybe does that go with toe jam? I don't know. It's just it's not pleasant. Let's move on.
We'll move on. We'll move on to the second item, which is a paperback version of The Visitor, the 4th in the Jack Reacher series.
If they've made it to book 4.
It was the only Jack Reacher book that they'd read, because I thought that why 4. But yeah, I scrolled up and down and I couldn't find any other Jack Reachers, so I don't know is the answer. I don't know whether that's a clue or not. It would sort of imply they've read at least 3 more.
You would have thought. But then, did they only review this one because it was suddenly a massive disappointment after the first 3?
Yeah.
Or did they only review this one because they'd never heard of it and now they're angry that it's a series and they've read it?
Also possible.
People get angry about that.
What way are we going?
Also, I worry that if this is somebody who's already given another author a 1 star, that it's one of those classic people that gives every book they read a 1 star.
Always a risk. Yeah, I'm going to say 1 star.
Okay, 1 star.
I'm going to go wild. I'm going to say 5. Just to split it, so we have a winner.
It is 1 star. Usually I don't like to sort of usually we try not to pick on books, but this review made me laugh. So avoid one of the most ludicrous plots ever. I've read quite a few of the Reacher novels, and the novels are in inverted commas.
Oh dear.
The early ones were just acceptable. The more recent ones appear to have been written by some computer algorithm. So when I saw number 4, one of the early ones I'd missed, in a charity shop priced £2, I thought I'd give it a chance. Well, if nothing else, it confirmed that Mr. Childs is a very lucky and clever man. He managed to hypnotize, there's a clue right there, a great many people into buying his inane rubbish, me included, I'm sorry to say. And yes, I realize this is fiction, but come on, there's a limit. Life's just too short.
Oh dear.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is there any way to make sure they never read my book?
Yeah. Well,
no.
I mean, yours is clever, isn't it? Whereas that sounds like they've been duped into sort of being tricked, I think. I think would they be okay?
I don't know. I mean, you know what you're getting with Jack Reacher. If you're going to be disappointed by book number 4, you haven't got a lot of hope. You thought the first 3 were just passable. Tell that to his bank balance. Yeah,
I don't think he's going to be worrying about this particular 1-star review, I'll be honest.
His nights are not abounding.
I guess there's 2 more questions. Rob would love to know, and I guess you're already writing in a few genres. Is there another genre that you would like to explore?
Is there another genre left?
Well, do you know, I've always been a huge fantasy fan, and I've never written any fantasy, so
Right.
you never know.
Fantasy. Is that your answer?
Yeah.
Yeah, lovely. That was nice and easy. And we always finish with, what are you reading at the minute?
What am I reading at the minute? I'm reading, oh gosh, what am I reading? I'm reading Anthony Horowitz. I'm reading the third one of the Hawthorne and Horowitz series. That's what I'm reading at the moment.
Is that good?
It is very good. I got to lie in the park in the sunshine and read it yesterday, and it was very pleasant.
Sounds great.
So I really
That sounds like a good one. Sean, what are you reading?
I'm reading quite an old, but it's for research, capital crimes. So it's all about murders and mysteries that happened within London over 7 centuries. So it's a bit weighty, but it's full of dark, dirty nonsense that happened around the Thames, which I love.
excellent.
Right.
So yeah, the research.
For something you're going to write?
Yes. Y'all just have to wait.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Oh, we are just going to have to wait, aren't you? Look,
He's just not going to say anything more, is he?
You just have to wait. Spoilers. I've given you enough. 7 centuries of murder. What more do you want?
I'm excited about that. I've just finished Susie Holliday's The Hike, which I think is like in the summer, which is really good. I was sort of said this on Twitter yesterday, but she writes so well, but with such little, like, I guess in such few words is what I said. Like, she gets so much across in one bit of speech. You can tell how they're feeling, what's going to happen. Well, not what's going to happen next, because that's always the exciting part. But yeah, really skilled. So now I was sort of like, what am I going to read next? And I thought it was going to be False Value by Ben Aronovich. But I've got the first. Is it The Word Is Murder by Anthony Horowitz? Which is that the first in
That's
the
the
series?
first one, yeah.
So I might get that out instead.
I have to say, my mum has been nagging me to read these books for several years now, and I've only just got around to it, so she's very pleased that I finally find it.
There's good recommendations.
Yeah, worth the time then. Maybe I'll do that instead.
The other thing I've got just sitting, waiting to read, it's in my inbox, is the first chapter of Chris's next book.
Oh.
Yeah.
So it's only the first chapter. He's teasing me along. But,
I've had reports that have literally, like hung over me like a shadow for weeks, and I finally got them done, and I thought last night I'm gonna just go mental in a forest.
Yeah,
That's what I did. Yeah, so it might be rambling nonsense of report writing madness, but
yeah.
Who knows?
If it turns out that it's a group of 10-year-olds on a school trip that all get slain, I'll know that the report writing has had a detrimental effect on your view of your class.
Yeah, it'll even out in a few weeks' time when it's the summer holidays. Go back to the happy murders.
Great.
Well, yeah, this has been class. So thank you so much, Katy.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been the best.
21st of July.
21st of July.
Awesome. Yeah. So just are you going to Harrogate?
I am. I will be traveling up to Harrogate on release day. And my children have been given special dispensation to leave school ever so slightly early on the last day of term, so we can get up there in time
nice.
to
Are
celebrate.
you sticking around the whole time?
I'll be there the whole weekend.
Cool.
I'm doing a Q&A with Rosemary Schrager on the Saturday in the Crime Vault tent. And then we're going on up, we're having a bit of a tour. So I'm going up to Durham and Hadrian's Wall and York, and then back down to Manchester for the Crime Central event on the 28th.
Yes, and what a nice way to end it. Which is a great event. So there's you, Caroline England, and Dom Nolan, who Vine Street was amazing, so I can't wait for that.
I'm very, very excited about it.
It's going to be good.
Well, enjoy the tour.
Yeah, and thank you so much for your time tonight.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, guys. It's been really fun.
And we will see you in the flesh very soon.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Bye.